Cartridges, cartridges, cartridges. We have got all sorts of "This is the world's best cartridge" letters today, folks. From the 4570 down to the 223 Remington with a 350 Legend and a 360 Buckhammer. You name it, it's in here. Let's find out what all of you have to say about your favorite cartridges. Hello, everyone. Hey, we are going to start off with some good information about hand loading that new all-steel case from Federal in the 7mm backcountry. One of our patrons, Dell, has been working with it for a year now, and he absolutely loves it, and he's having great success hand loading this, not without a few mistakes here and there. And we're going to hear about some of them, but I really want to thank Dell for sharing what he has learned with all of us, because a lot of folks are interested in that steel case 7mm that allows you to have much higher pressures and thus faster velocities, and then you can use a shorter barrel if you'd like to keep the same velocities you'd get with the older cartridges, say like the 280 Remington, but you get to use a much shorter and handier barrel. So at any rate, Dell's been working with it and taking game with it and all that, and hand loading it and discovering a few things. And and one of them involves lubricating the case. Now, if you guys have never hand loaded before, one of the steps is to lubricate the brass case before you shove it into what's called a die, and that is a preformed cavity, much like the chamber in your rifle, in which you push that case and it squeezes it back down to original dimensions. And if you don't lubricate it, it can get stuck in there. And with a steel case, there's not a lot of flex, I think, and Dell stumbled onto that. Let's see what he has to say. Loading procedures. Trying to come up with the right processes. Well, it has its hits and misses. As an engineer, I developed a lot of processes for a lot of my work with traditional brass cartridges. But I learned a lesson that I will not repeat with this steel case. The lube, they say to always use it sparingly. So I was thinking, well, maybe I'm using a little too much lube on these steel cases. So I decided to put a lighter film of it on just to test that out. Big mistake. I was cycling the press, and about 3/4 of the way into the stroke, it locked up on me. I put everything I had into it, and I could not move anything. So I started to take the die off to remove it, and the shell holder came up to the bottom of the die. It actually pulled the case out of the die. I thought, cool, brass could not do that. It would pull off the rim from the case. So I readjusted my die, and I was getting back to work. Well, if you remember, I told you that it took more arm strength to resize the 7mm backcountry. Well, I was in the middle of a case with a lot of arm strength when, bam, it popped. I had broken the shell holder. That's a little steel thing that holds the rim of the shell while you're pushing it in and out of the die. So Dell says, now that is the difference with these steel cases. Well, I have a new sizer die on the way, and I will continue to put as much lube as I can on it. Lesson learned the hard way. You always learn those best. Well, thanks for that, Dell. Now, Dell did tell me that he has gotten as many as 6 reloads from one of these steel cases. And Federal was claiming 3. I would imagine that's because they like to always fudge it a little bit on the safe side. And then if people can exceed that, whoopee, everybody's happy. But they don't want to promise something that you might not necessarily get. So good information there on the new steel cases. I think these are going to continue to get a lot of interest, and a lot of folks are hoping that new cartridges come out with that, because it does offer us, I think, a glimpse into potential for the future with some smaller rifle barrels and such. And then the use of suppressors, a lot of folks are going to that as well, and it just helps keep everything down without giving up good muzzle velocity. Here is another patron. By the way, guys, if you would like to join us on our Patreon community, we had a lot of fun here, especially with our meetings at Tier 3. But go to Patreon It's patreon.com, and then punch my name in, Ron Spomer Outdoors, and then it'll give you what you need to see on the page there to join us on Patreon at several tier levels. The higher the tier level, the more stuff you get. There's a newsletter every couple of weeks, and I post a lot of interesting things that are going on around here that we don't necessarily get to put into a podcast or a regular YouTube video. And then we have some meetings at Tier 3 where we all get together online. We call it the campfire. It's a digital campfire meeting, but some of these guys are a real hoot. And they're from all over the world, and it's really fun to find out how people are hunting, where they're hunting, and what the regulations are, and all the differences in our cartridges and ammunition and regulations and animals and everything else. So it's a lot of fun. If you'd like to join us, we'd be pleased to have you. Patreon. All right, here's John, another patron, and he's talking about factory muzzle velocity claims and what he's really discovering, I think. Ron, I took out my old Savage 110 Timberline in 6.5 PRC that I mentioned in my last letter to you, and I shot the same Norma Bond Strike 143 grain ammunition, and I got the same average of 2,766 feet per second. That was for 9 shots, and that's the same thing I got 2 weeks ago. And back then, the groups that I got were .375, .668, and .567 of an inch. Those are 3-shot groups. Those are pretty nice and pretty consistent. And the stated box muzzle velocity was 2,953 feet per second. So, he was going a lot slower. I then switched to Hornady Precision Hunter 143 grain ELDX loads, and I got an average velocity of 2,980 feet per second versus the advertised box muzzle velocity of 2,960. So, a little bit faster. The three-shot groups on the Hornady round, though, were decidedly inferior to the Normas. Their groups were just 1.4, 1.3, and 1.7 inches. So apparently the length of my rifle's throat is not the issue I was having with the various velocities and not matching up to the factory loads. The Hornady round matched or exceeded the box velocity. So it makes me wonder if the 6.5 PRC ammo manufacturers have run into the same issues that Hornady experienced with the 7mm PRC, where they had to begin using different low-velocity powders to maintain accuracy due to powder shortages. The Hornady lot that I have dates from 2022, and the Norma ammo was bought about that same time. But I'm wondering if Norma switched to a lower velocity powder which preserved accuracy while Hornady stuck with high velocity but sacrificed some accuracy with respect to these particular loads. Alas, when I start to do detective work regarding all these loads, I feel like I'm more like Inspector Clouseau than Hercule Poirot. Oh, gosh. John, that's kind of the opposite. When Hornady was having issues with that PRC powder they couldn't get, and we're pretty sure it was Reloader 26, that's where they got their top velocities, and they were satisfied with the precision performance on grouping and all. And when they couldn't get that anymore, they experimented, and then they gave up on the top velocity to maintain the accuracy. Of course, the accuracy they get with their test rifle doesn't mean all of us are going to necessarily get it with our rifles. It's just the crazy thing about rifles and barrels and ammunition. Each one is different. And one brand of rifle right off the line behind the other one in the same chambering and everything else can shoot beautifully while the other one shoots miserably with the same ammunition, which is why we always say you just have to work with different loads and figure out which one your rifle likes or which rifle your load likes. But that's basically what's going on. But I appreciate what you're telling us about the differences in advertised velocity on the back of the ammo box versus what you're actually getting. And I always encourage people to get a hold of a chronograph and find out for sure what your bullet is doing. And I've had people write in to say, by golly, they're never going to waste money on a chronograph. Well, it's your life, you're shooting. I got along for years and years without one. It's not like you have to have it. But if you really want to know what's going on with your loads and your shooting out to distance and all, what your drops and stuff are, having a chronograph really speeds all of that up and helps you be more precise. But guys, listen, if you don't have one, and Betsy's about to weigh in on something, I see that look. If you don't have a chronograph, don't freak out. The old-fashioned way is to just shoot more and measure things. So if you shoot at 100 yards, for instance, and use 0, 2 inches high or whatever you choose to do. And then you want to see what that bullet does at 200 yards. You have to shoot a 200-yard target and see the drops. And at 300 yards and at 400 yards until you get it all figured out and write your tables. It's just that the ballistic calculators online that are free do all the math for you without burning up your ammunition. Now, Betsy, what were you going to say?
Well, we used to have that chronograph. What was the name of it?
Putting me on the spot now, was the Oehler, Oehler,
Well,
Oehler or Oehler chronograph?
but it was different technology. And when we
completely different technology.
And when we switched to the Garmin, which we love, and I would advise click the link and buy.
Oh, you're selling Garmins now. This is what's going on.
They're not sponsoring us. We just have affiliate links.
Right. We have an affiliate link, guys. Whenever we have affiliate links on here to the things we're talking about, it's just, well, it's a convenience for you if you say, oh, gosh, yeah, I've always wanted to get one of those. Well, here's your link. Go buy it. We get a small cut of that. What do we get, honey? About 99%?
It's small.
More like 9% or less than that.
It depends on where they buy it, 2 to 5%.
Okay, 2 to 5%. Anyway, we just want you to know that. You guys are helping us out while you're picking up your what is it? In this case, it's the Garmin, but in other cases, it might be something else. This is Betsy's little sideline business, guys. I'm just the mouthpiece, as you know. Okay, we'll let Betsy get her little advertising plugs in as often as she wants, because I'm sure she's going to share some of her largesse with me someday.
Not even.
Not even. All right, let's see what Steve has to say. Steve is from Georgia, and he writes quite a bit, and we share what's going on and which rifles we're liking and having fun with and all that. And he says, hey, Ron, the first rifle I ever shot was a Marlin Model 81 in 22 long rifle, and I was 8 years old. The first centerfire rifle I ever shot was my buddy's Marlin 336 in a 30-30, and I was 16 years old. The first rifle I owned, centerfire, first rifle period that I owned was a Marlin 39A 22 long rifle, and I was 16 years old. That's one I always wanted when I was 16 too, but I couldn't afford one. The first centerfire rifle I ever owned and bought with my own money was a used Herder's 243 Winchester. I was 18 years old. I have subsequently owned rifles in .444 Marlin, 308 Winchester, 44 Mag, 223, and 270 Winchester. If I were, say, 40 years younger and starting over, I would still have the 22 long rifle, but I wouldn't have or get the centerfires in any of those cartridges. I'm sure I would get rifles chambered in cartridges bucked by the crowd, maybe or maybe not, a backcountry 2.0 in 338 RPM, an X-Bolt 2 Speed SPR in 6.8 Western, whatever 25 caliber I think Weatherby has coming out next week, and it's already out. All with suppressors on them, and then I would get something wrapped in expensive walnut with fancy checkering and color case hardened steel, and then I'd wonder why I don't have something in 7mm BC, and I'd get one of those, and then I'd want one of those old-timey lever guns, and then I'd feel I need to have an AR, and then, oh boy, it would be 2065, and I, while watching the latest AI-driven podcast about the newest cartridges versus those old obscure rounds like the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 300 PRC and the 7mm backcountry, I'd be wondering what I would get if I were 40 years younger again. Boy, Steve, that really sums it up. That's just what we do. We get a little tarmac behind us, under our feet, and we look back and we go, I don't have any of those cartridges anymore. I obviously made a switch somewhere along the line. What would happen if I lived another 40 years and all the new cartridges came out? What would I still be shooting? But, I hear from a lot of folks who absolutely insist that they are still shooting the 30-30 they first started off with, and that's all they've ever needed, and they're never going to get anything else. And if they're happy with it, more power to them. The whole idea here is to use what you like. And of course, we always like to provide information so that you can make some intelligent decisions, like why pick the 30-30 over the 300 Win Mag? Well, if you're shooting in the woods somewhere and your longest shot is 50 to 100 yards, you don't need a 300 Winchester Magnum. So we recommend the 30-30. But if you like the idea of having a 300 Winchester Magnum anyway, go ahead and use it. It's your hunt. It's your rifle. All right, here is Richard. Oh, Richard, I think, has something good to say about his daughter. Ron, my daughter, who is 16, decided to begin whitetail hunting this year. I have tried to get her to go with me for hunting for many years, but she just never really showed an interest in it until now. Well, needless to say, I had to expedite the hunting gear for her at the last moment and find a rifle for her smaller frame. Even though she's been shooting since the age of 4 and she's shooting high-powered rifles, they were not her forte. I settled for a Bergara B14 Stoke in 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, she found the recoil mild enough to comfortably shoot it consistently and accurately. From opening day, I worked with her, trying to remember how I felt the first season that I began hunting. However, her persistence and her diligence and determination surpassed mine as a new hunter. Early on in the season, she had 2 misses that affected her confidence, but not her drive. She toughed out the below-freezing mornings. The rain and high winds in the mountains of West North Carolina are known for, not to mention the boredom that goes along with hunting. Well, on the last day of the season, we hunted an area we had not hunted before from a portable duck blind of all things. And after 2.5 hours, 3 deer came into view. My daughter took her time for a good shot and then took her first deer. The blast of that 6.5 Creedmoor was a wonderful sound I will never forget. The joy and excitement she expressed after the shot was a combination of accomplishment and confidence. I am just glad I was with her at that moment. Her perseverance is inspiring to me, even if I'm her father. I can't think of a better hunting experience than this one, Ron. Thanks so much for your knowledge and expertise that you share with your audience. It was your honest critique of the 6.5 Creedmoor that led me to that particular cartridge. The stories of your own hunts, well, they made me want to share a hunting experience with my daughter. As a bonus, even though deer season is over here in North Carolina, we are headed out this weekend to go squirrel hunting. I hope she continues hunting and passes it on. Once again, thanks, Ron. Wow. Thank you. That was a great little story, Richard. And I am so tickled for you and your daughter. You congratulate her from me and Betsy as well. Betsy, can you remember your first hunt?
Yes, and I was not 16. Yes, I was in Africa.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up as a hunter or in a hunting family.
No, you're a bit of an outdoorsman, though. You used to go fishing with your
absolutely.
dad and backpacking and camping. And Betsy was a kayaker back in the days when that was just getting started, you know, the kind of kayaking you do these days. She was on the ground floor of that, and she kayaked big wild rivers in Idaho and Alaska. And did you go down to South America and do some too? Chile, man. So that woman was a kayaker. Today, her shoulders don't agree with her decision to do all that kayaking. But boy, she had her fun back in those days.
But the first hunt was exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have been I don't know if it would, if you were guiding me. I had a guy named Hannes, and he was delightful and wonderful and patient.
Guys, this is good advice here. Guiding your wife on a hunt could be like teaching her how to drive. The same things pop up. I don't know what it is about. I can work with other people and kids and other people's wives, and I'm very patient, and they think it's just wonderful. And if I do it with Betsy, she's like, why don't you do this? I don't know what it is.
It's the tone.
It's the tone, just subtle little tone. I think everybody will understand it. There's just something about husbands and wives in that situation where, I don't know, we just assume that the wife should be able to understand it or get it or something, and we lose patience.
Or vice versa. We think the husband should.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
But actually, we in all seriousness, work very well because we run a company together. Or I run the company, and
I'm the front man. Yeah. Pretty soon I'll be replaced by AI, so that'll be easy then. And by the way, we get along great on our hunts now. I love to guide Betsy because she does what I suggest, and I've gotten old enough not to insist on anything. It's like her hunt. If she wants to screw it up, go ahead. But I think she's been around long enough to know that, well, Grandpa Ron's done this a few times. If he says to go this direction and that instead of that direction, it might not be a bad way to go. But her last stalk, she closed from 400 yards to 150, made a perfect shot. That buck never knew she was in the neighborhood. So good job, hon. What?
nothing.
I'm getting the evil eye for that? I can't win, guys. I'll find out after the show what I said wrong that time.
Just look at the tape. Continue. Go
Continue. On. Well, let's see here. What is this? Barbara. Where did this one come from? Oh, my God. Picked up 2 pages at once here. This is now. This is something I want to touch on from Gary. Gary writes and says, "I made a bad shot on a whitetail, barely clipping the front part of the left hind quarter. So the reason for this bad shot was that the rings were too low for the bell of the scope. I was told that it was sighted in. I bought it just before the season, but I couldn't sight it in without high clearance scope rings." And I think what this is telling me is that, guys, you've got to get this stuff done before you go hunting. You can't buy the rifle and have them tell you it's zeroed and you go hunting and find out it's not when you're shooting at an animal. So I'm not running you down here, Gary, but it's one of those, you're going to remember this one because you learned the hard way. My brother did this years ago. He bought this fancy new 270 because we were going to go on our first pronghorn hunt, and oh boy, 270 would be just great. So he bought the 270 and put a scope on it. Where he bought it, they mounted it for him and they bore sighted it. We didn't even know what that meant. So he just said, okay, it's sighted, and he loaded it up. We went hunting and he shot the hillsides and the grass and everything but a pronghorn because it wasn't even close. Bore sighting might get you on a 12-inch page at 100 yards or something, but it's hardly zeroed properly. So yeah, and what Gary is talking about here with this bell thing on the scope, I'm assuming that his scope rings were not high enough to hold the bell off of the barrel. So the front of the scope was touching the barrel, and then it was causing vibrations and screwing stuff up. That's pretty common. So yeah, you need to make sure there's enough gap between the barrel and any part of the scope that it doesn't touch, especially the bell of the scope. So get things done well ahead of time, guys. All right. Here's somebody talking about the 350 Legend. And he says, rimless case of the 350 Legend is not ideal for traditional lever-action guns, whereas the 360 buckhammer is very comparable to the 3030 in performance and offered in several lever guns. Love your content. So I wrote back to Crow and said, indeed, Mr. Crow, I think Winchester assumed that most folks would be wanting rifles in bolt action or perhaps auto-loading styles with these vertical stacked magazines in the straight wall states, so they made that 350 with a rimless case, which works better in those vertical stack magazines. And then I imagine that they also thought that their sharply tipped higher BC bullets would provide better ballistics and better downrange energy, another good reason to have the vertical stack magazine. And that left Remington to fill in the lever action straight wall niche with rimmed cases and round flat-nosed traditional bullets, which you get in the 360 buckhammer, which is the modern take on the old-fashioned tubular magazine lever-action cartridges like the 30-30, 32 Special, and all those. So I think it's an example of our ammo companies coming up with what they think the market would like or would use, and I think Winchester for sure nailed it with that 350 Legend because that is really, really popular in the straight wall states for deer hunting, but it's also catching on in a lot of other places. It's just a nice, easy shooting, mild, but yet darned effective that comes pretty close to doing what the 3030 does. So if anybody's interested in that, check out the 350 Legend. And then they have one slightly bigger called the 400 Legend. Works on a similar process. But if you love lever actions, that 360 buckhammer is kind of the new, I call it the new 35 Remington. It actually outperforms the 35 Remington for muzzle velocities and energies and all that. So not a huge difference, but yet the 30-30 and all of those are pretty much all in that same ballpark. Great out to about 150 to maybe 200 yards. With a good scope, you can certainly extend the range on those a bit. All right, now, this is getting into what I think is a little bit too much assumption on our parts. Many of us assume that our cartridges and bullets are doing things that they maybe not doing. So let's hear from a couple of folks about the venerable 4570 government cartridge. Dowie says, my 4570 shoots quarter MOA. Now, okay, you're there, I'm not, but I have never seen one do that. So I'm kind of like, I haven't seen very many anything cartridges shoot quarter MOA. Maybe one time you got lucky, I don't know. But what I want to bring up here is, guys, don't get too enamored of your shooting and or your cartridges and rifles and think that one time you shot this one really magical tight group and now you can just depend on that rifle to do that all the time. Because what that risks is extending your range, taking shots that you might not necessarily want to take. Because do you really think your rifle is always going to shoot that well? So be honest with yourselves. I know I'm going to get complaints from guys who say, Ron, you do all these reviews of different rifles and cartridges, and you shoot 3-shot groups, and you say, ooh, that one shot 3/4-inch group, this one shot a 1/2-inch group. I am not saying that that rifle is a solid, every time I fire 3 shots are all going to group that well. It's just showing what it is capable of doing. It suggests that with the right loads and the right bullets, this rifle is going to be a pretty darn accurate shooter. I might someday get a 1/4 MOA group, and other days I might get no better than a 1, but it gives us a ballpark figure. But I just don't say that because I shot 1 1/2 MOA group that this rifle is always going to do that so I can extend my range to 500 yards, that sort of thing. Now, another guy is weighing in on the 4570.
Is this regarding your review of the cartridge, the 4570?
I'm not real sure where it came from, honey, but yeah, it was something on YouTube, so it's probably my little video on the 4570 and the history of it and where
The cartridge of the week
yeah,
that we
the
just
cartridge
started.
of the week. That was it. So, guys, we're going to be doing these cartridges of the week because we've got a lot of folks kind of interested in that. We thought, what the heck, why don't we just sort of give an overview of all kinds of cartridges. You name it, we're going to do it. And then we can give some of the history, where it came from, who made it. Was it a company or an individual? Was it a wildcatter? What was it used for famously back in the day? And just everything and anything about it, including some of its ballistic performance and all that. Just good background stuff. Kind of like having a dictionary of cartridges. So you want to wonder about a cartridge and anything about it, you can check that video out. We'll see how well it works, but let us know. Well, watch the one on the 4570 and tell us what you think and what you think we left out that you'd like to see us put in. They're fairly short. I think it's about 13 minutes. We're going to try to keep them between that 8 to 13-minute range. But Jeremy here says something about his 4570. He said, well, Hornady's lever evolution cartridge, the round, the ammunition, made a big difference in his rifle. He says, I know that my 4570 would shoot the Remington 4570 loads and that they would drop 6 inches at 100 yards. But with the Hornadys, I can shoot out to 225 yards, no problems. Now, maybe you can. I'm not saying you can't, but I am getting the implication from you that this ammunition shoots that much flatter. And I thought it's really, you need to look at some better numbers than that, because that sounded a little too enthusiastic, shall we say? So I ran some charts on it to see what's going on. Now, I don't know how your rifle is zeroed, but most, we assume, have their sights about 1.5 inches above the bore. So I took that, and then I took the 300 grain load from Remington, assuming that's the one you were talking about, and zeroed it for 100 yards. Obviously, it's not going to drop 6 inches at 100 yards if you zero it for 100 yards. But most people are zeroing at 100 or maybe 150 or something. So let's just see what kind of drops we get with that, with a 100-yard zero versus this Hornady. Now, on the Hornady load, the Revolution, that's that. They've got super powders in there that they mix up to get a little more velocity than normal powders would give you. And they also have that rubber-tipped pointy bullet for the higher BC. So the BC on this Hornady bullet is .23, and the old Remington one that you're shooting, I'm assuming if you're shooting the 300 grain, is .213. So there's a bit of a difference in the efficiency of those bullets. You're going to expect that Remington to drop more, like you said, but really how much? Okay, 100 yards zero for both of them. At 150 yards, the old 300 from Remington drops 4.8 inches, and the sharper, faster bullet from Hornady drops 3.6 inches. There's a bit of an advantage there, but it's not huge. By the way, the launch velocities on this, I'm assuming, I'm going with what the manufacturers claim. 1,800 feet per second for the Remington, 2,000 feet per second for the Hornady. Now, the reason it should shoot flatter. All right, let's step it out to 200 yards. 14.3 inches of drop out of the Remington, 10.87, 10.9. so almost 11 inches out of the Hornady 325 grain lever revolution bullet. And at 250 yards, you've got just about 30 inches of drop out of the old Remington and 22 and a half out of the Hornady. So yes, there's the flatter shooting benefit to that one, but it's not what you suggested, 6 inches of drop at 100 and then good out to 225. Now, there is a way, though, to get that, and that's by zeroing your rifle farther out, sort of for maximum point-blank range. So what we do is we zero the rifle at whatever distance that gives us a trajectory that goes no higher than 3 inches above our point of aim, and then when it drops below that by 3 inches, you're staying inside of a 6-inch target, and that's the vitals of just about anything. Coyotes, deer, pronghorns, and all that stuff. So it's a good way to extend your range, and let's just see how well that works. Back to that same 300 grain bullet with the same velocity and everything from the Remington, but now instead of zeroing at 100, we're doing it at 145 yards. That puts us 3 inches high at 75 yards, 2.86 inches above our line of sight at 100 yards, dead on at 145 yards. So at 200, we're only 8.65 low, and at 250, we're only 22.5 low. So you've got a flatter shooting setup there. Still not flat out to 225. You got 14.78, almost 15 inches of drop. So you're going to have to hold over your animal and drop it in there, kind of a deal. What does that Hornady Revolution ammo do for you? This one we can zero at 160 yards, and we will be 3 inches high at 100, and only 5 inches low at 200, 9.5 inches low at 225, 15 inches low at 250. So yeah, there's some benefit there, but that's how you can really extend your range and be able to aim dead on to your deer's chest out to 200, 225 yards, or whatever that 3 inches of drop thing is. Once you know that, it makes it so much easier to hunt without having to freak out about another 25 yards closer or farther away for reasonable distances. They call that maximum point blank range, and I absolutely love it. So something you might want to consider. All right, now, boy, did we catch some grief about a cartridge. It's the 25 RPM from Weatherby. Obviously, it's a new cartridge, and you know how people like to whine and complain about new cartridges. Oh, how horrible. How dare they give us a new cartridge. We don't need it. It's useless. Let's just find out what some people are saying about it and how I might just respond. This is from Barbara. Why the new 25 Weatherby? To sell more stuff. All these YouTube shows wouldn't exist without new products. Otherwise, you're back to being a hunting show. There's lots of money in guns and ammo for the manufacturers. Huge profit margins, which is why you get free guns and ammo. Betsy, you didn't tell me we were getting free guns and ammo. I had to have Barbara tell me. Anybody out there doing the Project Farm approach to hunting equipment? What's that? Anybody know what the Project Farm approach is? At any rate, Barbara, I don't know. I wrote back and said, yeah, I'm not so sure, Barbara. My most popular videos are not about new stuff, but old stuff. Old bread and butter is providing solid ballistic data. That's what we do, and we give history and interesting guns. We cover those and lots of old guns. And if we tried to survive on new products, we would have to wave bye-bye pretty quickly because there aren't that many. But do you really want firearms channels to disappear? Because the anti-gunners and anti-hunters sure do. All right, now let's hear from Teufel. And, oh, my goodness, Teufel's getting violent here. This SHT is ridiculous. New cartridges are developed and marketed for one reason: to sucker people into buying new rifles. Profit-driven. Capital letters, guys. Profit-driven. More whitetail deer have been harvested in America with the 30-30 than any other round, and all of a sudden it's outdated, but the new whatever is the best? It's a scheme to keep gun makers in business, and there are always people willing to push this stuff for a profit. I've been using the same 308 for 40 years, and it still kills every animal I hunt. So I wrote back to Teufel, and I said, right on, Teufel. We hunters and shooters don't want any firearms and ammunition makers to remain in business. Shut them all down. The world has too many guns and too much ammunition already. Besides, people should not be allowed to make products and sell them to willing buyers and realize a profit. Everyone knows making money or even trading labor for food and shelter is anti-human. This SHT is ridiculous.
Oh, you went on a rant.
Boy, I went on a rant on that one, didn't I? But this is the point. It's like so many people complain that they're given an option for a new kind of a rifle or cartridge, and they all want it to, how dare they make money? They're just trying to sell you this stuff to make money. Why does anybody go into business to make stuff?
I wonder what year car he drives.
Yeah, probably a 1920 Model A or something.
Oh, that would be worth a lot of money.
Well, some people just like to complain. Guys, I get it. If you've got your old cartridge and you love it, great. Go ahead and use it. But, I don't know, don't click on YouTube channels that say they're going to give you the presentation on the newest cartridge if you hate new cartridges. No. It's just information. And I'm not here to, I don't make a profit by talking to you about the new cartridge that came out, other than I'm going to get more clicks. And as you know, you get filthy rich on YouTube by getting a fraction of a penny for every 1,000 clicks or whatever it is we get. But the point is, I think, at least I hope, I am providing some kind of a service to you in which you don't just have to watch the advertisements from the manufacturers and decide whether or not you like their new product. Based on that, you can go to different channels like this one to find out what other users have discovered. And what I do with my reviews is say, here's the rifle and this is how it works, this is how it's made, these are the parts that they put together. Whether I like them or not, you might. This is how well it worked. Then I'll shoot it and show you how well it shot. And that will say something about the ammunition as well as the rifle and the scope. But we will talk about what each bullet does, what its ballistic performance is projected to be, and then how accurately it actually shoots and whether we like this feature or that or not. And then you can use that information to help make up your own minds. I'm sure plenty of people think I'm a stuffy old goofy FUD because I don't like 30-round magazines hanging off the bottom of my hunting rifles, but that's my taste. I give you my opinion, and you can take it or leave it. And as I often tell people who complain about this stuff, I say, I can give you your money back. What did you pay to watch that YouTube video?
They can join RSO TV for $5 and get ad-free.
Then I'd have to give them their money back. Okay, well, I appreciate you getting upset about new cartridges, but really, folks, it's kind of silly to get upset about something you don't even have to look at or buy or anything else. And, of course, companies are trying to make money. That's why they're manufacturing products. I can't think of too many companies that make things that they don't want to sell to make a profit. Okay, now here's somebody with a different take on the whole thing. He says, Mr. Spomer, I like the 250 Savage. It's the coolest quarter-inch caliber. You can't find all these new cartridges in a Savage 99. Well, not so good for 600-yard shots, but then neither am I. So there, Bob. Appreciate that one, Bob. And I replied to Bob, I said, hey, many of us old fuds, and even a few young fuds, do like that old 250 Savage. But I'll bet a raft of haters trashed it when it showed up in 1915. Who needs an 87-grain bullet going 3,000 feet per second? Why, that'll zip through so fast it won't even open up. That bullet's not heavy enough to kill a gopher. My 45-70 has been killing deer and even elk all my life. Who needs all these newfangled cartridges? My 1880 44-100 Remington Creedmoor shoots MOA at 1,000 yards. I don't need no 3,000 feet per second stupid little 25 caliber. Those rifle and ammo companies are just trying to make money. Boy, am I having fun with this one. Calm down. Calm down, Ron. Be professional. Thank you, Robert, for that excellent take on the 250 Savage. We appreciate it. Now, Hardball is taking me to task for covering the 25 RPM. Should have never done it. Give me a break. So, with a 117-grain bullet, it's twin. It is a twin to the 25-06. It's a fast twist 25-06. And if you own one, there's no reason to look at this RPM. I have a lot of trigger time behind a 25-06. And it's dropped woodchucks and coy dogs and whitetails out to very extended ranges on farm hedgerows with authority. In my humble opinion, this will go the way of the 6.8 Western, only offered in Winchester and Browning rifles. I'll bet the 25 RPM is only offered in Weatherby rifles. It looks like a nice round, but what's the barrel life like? 1,000 rounds or so? Rifle cost will be right up there, and it'll lag in sales with the smaller calibers doing varmint work and the 6.5 and the 7 and the 30s doing the heavy lifting. And I'll bet the ammo costs $70 for 20 rounds, and that'll keep people at bay. Too bad, but I expected more from you, Ron, besides a puff piece. A puff piece. Puff the Magic Dragon. I had to write hardball back on that one, guys. Hey, hardball, let me see if I understand this. I'm not allowed to cover a new cartridge because you don't like it. I have to trash it in order for this review to not be a puff piece. I got to tell you, I gave hard data. I told the truth. I showed what the rifle and ammunition did. I didn't say it's the greatest 25 caliber ever conceived. I didn't say it shot quarter MOA groups and that everybody has to buy it. If we can't showcase new cartridges or rifles on this channel, viewers will have to trust company marketing to discover them. I'm sorry, but I think that I will continue to explore and examine and test any and every hunting and shooting tool that I think viewers might care to learn about. I trust they can make up their own minds on what they like or dislike. By the way, if the 25 RPM were actually a twin to the 25-06, it would not shoot 50 feet per second faster with 2 inches of less barrel length. And it would not stabilize 133 grain bullets. Well, those who don't need or like this performance can ignore it. So no harm, no foul, okay? What do you think? Haven't heard back from him. Probably never will.
What people don't understand is verbally, you're not as good, but when you start writing, you can match anybody. Comment.
Well, people just get worked up, I think, over a lot of nothing because it's all the information is free. You don't have to watch YouTube. And these new cartridges, you don't have to buy them. You don't have to like them, but you don't have to call people names and complain that, my God, they made something new. How horrible. Well, I still like my 757 Mauser. I guess I win on the old cartridge. Well, I probably have to shoot a 4570. Then I'd be the winner. All right, let's see what Red Eagle has to say. 243 is a round that I used to introduce my daughter to deer hunting. I was a 30-06 guy my whole life, but she's 12 years old. She would never be able to shoot that. Don't be surprised if she could. Lots of them do. But at any rate, he continues. I had completely underestimated the 243 Winchester. My daughter has harvested every year, and she has never needed more than one shot. The furthest any deer went was about 10 yards. She shoots the Remington 100 grain Corlock PSP green and yellow box, and it is devastating. I have even considered switching to 243 myself after seeing it in action for a few years now. Well, there you go. You don't need the 25 RPM or anything else, 243 Winchester. Good to hear that, Red Eagle. Yeah, that is a great little cartridge. It only throws a 100 grain bullet around 3,000 feet per second, but it sure seems to get the job done. And you're welcome to try one of those, anybody and everybody. Oh, here's another guy with a daughter, 12-year-old. My 12-year-old, says Andrew, shoots whitetail deer with a Thompson Center Encore chambered for the 223 Remington. It has a 24-inch barrel and a hand-load Nosler 60-grain partition bullets, and all are one-shot kills within ethical distances. Boy, now we're going to catch some crap about the 223 Remington again. Some people just insist that that is unethical to use. But I keep hearing from people, maybe before we dive into the surprise, these come from the website again, hon?
For the 100th time, yes.
See, guys, I can't teach her how to drive, and she got to teach me how to run this computer and remember what I'm doing. But I do remember my knife. This is the Ron Spomer Hunt on a Shoot Straight knife from Knives of Alaska in the classic Hunter conformation. I like this size. For a sheath knife, I think this is just about right. Not too heavy, not too wide, just about right for covering most of what we hunt. Little bit longer than I love for deer, but just right for elk and not too small for moose. I've skinned bears with it. It's a great knife. It's made with Magnum cut steel, and that's about as good as you can get for holding an edge. The only thing that's sharper and lasts longer is probably diamond blade. This one has a full tang, which is what you want. I like that. A handle because it's synthetic and it's never going to swell and all that other stuff. It's just a great all-around knife. If you want to check it out sometime, go to Knives of Alaska. They have many, many styles and everything else in there, but if you want one with my ugly mug on it, that's the one to get. All right, here from Oshkosh, Wisconsin comes Chris. Ron, I enjoy your podcasts and your other YouTube information. I'm working my way through all of them and learning something from each and every one. Well, great. I'm glad to hear that. This year I was in Montana. I'm going back soon to chase some elk. I hunted with a Tikka 7mm with a suppressor. It's a very long rifle, whether it's on my shoulder or attached to my pack. Made too much noise hitting branches. I love the Tikka, but I'm thinking of making this gun my backup. It'll still be my Wisconsin deer rifle, but I'm going to make it a backup for elk. I am thinking of putting together a Tikka action with a 16.5 or 20-inch proof barrel with a Tikka action, and then adding a folding stock to make it shorter. What are your thoughts? Also, and really my main question, 7mm with a 20-inch barrel and load some good loads to the best muzzle velocity I can get, or should I get the 16.5-inch 7mm BC? The BC would be a good elk gun, just concerned about the newness of that BC. So what do you think? All my shots are going to be under 400 yards, Chris. Yeah, Chris, you're thinking it through here, and more power to you for that. And that's exactly what is so attractive about that 7 backcountry with the high pressure. You get velocity from a short barrel that you would normally get from a barrel that's probably 2 or 3 inches longer. So if you're having issues dragging that long barrel around, this would be a great way to get around it. You're not going to get that same performance with your regular 280 Ackley improved or 7 mag or anything. So I would say, yeah, if you're going to step clear down to a 16.5-inch barrel, that's the one you want to look at. And you're going to keep your velocities up there. You're not going to match a 7 mag with a 24-inch barrel, but you're going to have the convenience, and you're going to have more than enough oomph in that bullet, energy downrange and all the rest, to do a great job. And if you get the right high BC bullet, your wind deflection isn't going to be much worse at a lower velocity. Velocity helps with that, but it's not as important as the BC of the bullet. So really all you're giving up is a little bit of a flatter, not as flat a trajectory. You're giving up the flat. But with laser rangefinders and dialing scopes and all the other things we use these days, that isn't as critical as it used to be by a long shot. So I think you're on the right track here. I don't know if I'd go 16.5-inch. I might be closer to 18-inch, but hey, it's your setup. Just do a little more investigating about anticipated losses of velocity and such, and I think you'll come up with something that works out pretty well for you. You are thinking it through very nicely. In Wisconsin, wasn't that one from Wisconsin? Why golly, we got 2 in a row. This is Riley. Ron, big fan of your videos and podcasts. I bought a Tikka T3X Superlight and 7 mag. What are you guys in Wisconsin all shoot 7 mags? It's going to be my do-it-all Western hunting rifle, as well as be able to hunt whitetail in my home state. I am a hand loader as well, and a big fan of the Barnes bullets. I was thinking about loading the 150 grain TTSX for elk and mule deer. The Tikka has a 1 9.5 twist. Using the bullet stability calculator on Berger's website, the formula says that the 150 grain TTSX will not stabilize in my rifle. Is there something I'm missing? I don't have much experience with the 7 mag, but I'm able to understand the standard twist barrels should at least be able to stabilize bullets up to 160 grains, no? Like I said, I'm a big fan of Barnes bullets, but I'm willing to use something that stabilizes better. Yeah, you're kind of on the edge there. Of course, you know, the copper bullets have to be longer for that same weight. So with a lead core bullet, 155 grains, 160 grains, easily stabilized in your 1 and 10-inch twist of your standard 280s, 280 Ackleys, 7 mags and stuff. You've got a little bit faster twist than that with 9.5, so I don't think you should have trouble stabilizing it. You know, the Berger stabilizer calculator is nice, but it doesn't absolutely predict perfectly. You might be close enough to being perfectly stable to get good accuracy out of it. You just probably have to give it a try. I certainly would. I think you could make it because, gosh, the 1 in 10 twists and 1 in 9 twists will stabilize 175 and 180 grain bullets in lead core. So I think you're just right there. I would give it a try. I just bet you're going to be able to do it. And it's a great bullet for elk. Oofta. Good luck with that one. Let us know how it goes. Here's somebody from Washington State and says, I made an excellent YouTube video. Well, thank you. So the perfect deer elk cartridge has been ridden hard and put away wet. How about a different approach? By caliber, not cartridge, due to the fact that bigger, faster magnums really just extend the distance and the drop, or minimize the drop. So how do different calibers and bullets really act on game? I have my personal experience after 50 years that gives me a voice. 308 Winchester under 150 years, everything drops like a sack of potatoes because the bullet never passed through. Well, I wouldn't say it's because the bullet never passed through, but it certainly did its job. 7-rim mag, great cartridge, moderate recoil, and all big game is dead. They just don't know it. Darn elk hunting. And fear nothing in North America. Brown and down with a 220. Oh, I missed a line. Sorry. Darn elk always run to the bottom of the canyon to die. Boy, I've seen that. It's true. I think it's because it's easier going. Why run uphill when you can go down? But at any rate, you still have to carry them out of there. Now, the 340 Weatherby, he says, is the most fun you can legally have out hunting, and you fear nothing in North America with that one. Brown and down with a 225 grain partition. Same results as 308 Winchester, but with the pass-through. They all drop like a sack of potatoes. My takeaway is the bigger diameter bullets show better results on impact, opposed to the sleek design bullets of smaller calibers. Thanks for all you do and keep it up. It's fun and enlightening at the same time. Happy New Year. Well, Happy New Year to you, KM. I can't argue with you. Big old 340 Weatherby at those velocities of the 225 grain bullet. Yeah, you better put a little hurt on something with that one. Sounds like you've got your mind made up, your cartridges and rifles picked out, and you are having a satisfying hunting life. So keep it up, partner. Eastern North Carolina is Blake checking in. Ron, I've been watching your YouTube videos and reading your articles for many years. I thoroughly enjoy your divisive thoughts and your open-minded ability to navigate through all this information. I recently found out you had a podcast, and I listen to it almost daily. Well, thank you for that, and you are now on it, Blake, and I'm glad to have you. Now he's got a question. Which caliber do you recommend from best to worst, and why for long-range hunting, such as 600 yards for whitetail deer and big black bear, and oh my gosh, 6.5 Creedmoor, 7-rim mag, 6.5 PRC. Thanks for narrowing it down for me, because I was going to go, oh my gosh, I can't do this. For long-range hunting and bigger animals, like you, he's mentioning that his bear get up to 800 pounds. Whitetail deer is not a big deal. I don't like to shoot anything at 600 yards. I don't think I ever did. I've shot very few things at maybe 500, couple 3-4 at 450, and there was one crazy one at 777. That was testing the new, at that time, 6.8 Western before it was actually released. But normally I don't shoot that far or recommend doing it. There's just too much chance that an animal moves before the bullet gets there while it's on the way. But, boy, of those, I would go with the 7-rim mag. I said years ago that's the kind of the great all-around do-everything cartridge for me. I know that the 7 millimeters can do pretty much anything the 30s can do unless you insist on a 200 grain bullet and heavier. And I have yet to meet an animal in North America and most of Africa that doesn't expire with the right 160 to 175 grain bullet in the right place. But that's just my personal bias. But of those three you mentioned, the 7-rim mag is definitely going to give you your best performance out there at those crazy ranges. So I'd roll with that one. All right. William from Florida, it looks like. Ron, I love the channel. Well, thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. I have been hunting with a Ruger M77 Mark II chambered in the mighty 30-06, greatest cartridge God saw fit to give us. Since my dad gave it to me for my 15th birthday, and I'm turning 39 this year, I have taken many deer and hogs with it with great success. I have not seen any reason to make me believe owning anything else is necessary. It is truly a rare case in life of one tool that does it all. So naturally, I just purchased a new Sacco Model 90 chambered in 243 Winchester. Can you please give me a recommendation for bullets? A couple of details. I always neck shoot my deer. I know there are many opinions on that, but that's what works for me. I do not hand load. My usual practice is to buy 2 or 3 factory options, find which one works the best in the rifle, and then get 500 rounds of it so I know I'm covered. That's a good approach, partner. Thanks in advance. Keep up the work. Okay. Oh, boy, Bill. The best ammo for neck shooting. I have seen neck shot with a 55 grain Nosler ballistic tip applied to the neck of a big, old stallion zebra. Down. We thought it was going to just blow up or something on it. It was a rancher down in Texas, had this mean old thing he was trying to get rid of. And we were out, my friend was coyote hunting, and this is what he had. So the guy said, if you see that thing, shoot it for me. So he figured a neck shot is his best chance to take it, and it did. It did. So that bullet can certainly do the job, but that's not the one I would recommend. Pretty much with a neck shot, anything's going to work out of a 243 on a little old deer. So I think a better option would be, boy, I'm going to recommend something like a Barnes TTSX. In case something goes wrong, you've got that good solid bullet that stays together. They always expand incredibly well. And if you're a little bit off, I think you got a better chance with that bullet. That's what I would recommend. Doesn't mean there's not plenty of others that are going to work out just great. But I don't think you have to go to the hundreds, especially with neck shots. I've taken a lot of deer with 6mm Remingtons and 243 Winchesters with some fairly light bullets, 75 grain, 80 grain, 85 grain. And they're a lot faster, and I've gotten some really dramatic results when those things land. And that includes chest shots as well as neck shots or anything else. So check that out and see if that doesn't work for you, William. Now, Benny from Virginia says, forgive my ignorance, but why do we not have a 30-06 Magnum? I'm aware of the multitude of calibers derived from the 30-06, but I've never heard of a Magnum in that caliber. Thanks for the info, and thanks for all you do. God bless. Well, since you were so nice to me, Benny, I'm going to be nice to you and point out that the 30-06 Magnum has been made many, many times over. It's obviously not the 30-06 case because it's as big as it is. You can't magnumize it anyway, other than you could make it an Ackley improved, which means you just push the shoulder forward a little bit and sharpen it to 40 degrees instead of 20 something that it is now. And that gives you a little more powder capacity. That's called the Ackley improved version. And it might add 100 feet per second to the velocities. But a real Magnum is a 300 Winchester Magnum, 300 short Magnum, both the Remington and the Winchester version, 300 in the Ruger compact Magnum. There's 300 Ruger Remington Ultra Magnum, 3378 Weatherby Magnum. They're the same caliber, shoots the same bullets, but they've got a lot more powder. And there's where you get your Magnum. So yeah, they're out there. But the best you can do with a 30-06 case is you just go with the Ackley improved version. Here is something Betsy just handed to me, or as they used to say on the news, and this just in. Obviously, a person who has never been there. What? Mark says, obviously, a person who has never been there. How could anyone believe such BS? If you intend to stop a serious attack, make sure you have suitable sights, magazine capacity, and deep penetration. Sounds like this is something to do with bear stopping, right?
That's a review that you did on that. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a small.
The review of the 357 Airlight.
Right, that one.
Mm-hmm. And this guy doesn't think it's adequate. He says, I need to have magazine capacity and deep penetration and manageable recoil. A Glock 17 loaded with Lehigh Defense Extreme Penetrator projectile accomplishes the mission. And you can engage that animal beyond 5 feet. You would really bet your life on such a puny firearm? You must be delusional. But clearly am. I clearly am. Imagine trying to stop a bear with a 357 Magnum and a heavy hard-cast bullet. Just can't be done. Hey, Mark. Now, nothing wrong with your Glock 17 loaded with Lehigh Defense Extreme Penetrator projectiles, if that's what you like. Many people choose many different tools with which to protect themselves from bear attacks, cougar attacks, and other things like that. And the 357 Magnum is quite often recommended as a pretty good starting point, and plenty of people have used even lighter setups than that. But I think the point is you've got to use what you have confidence in. And if this Glock 17 is working for you, so much the better. Use that, but allow others to choose what works for them, because there's no one absolute solution to this stuff. Now, White Ghost on the same topic has a little more humorous approach to slapping me upside the head for my ignorance. And he says, well, thanks for letting us know how you will spend your final moments. Good one, White Ghost. I hope you have a much more effective 357 than I do. Here's something about scope power. During your discussion involving scope power, I wondered if you could answer a question about open sights. Many modern rifles do not come with open sights. Most don't come with open sights. My concern is if you damage your scope on a backcountry hunt without open sights, your hunt would be over, right? Is it possible to have open sights put on a rifle like a Tikka 3 and still maintain the accuracy? Oh yeah, you can easily have your sights put on. I mean, think about a barrel back in the day when they always came with open sights. They just had to mill something into the barrel to put the sight on or screw it in or something, and a gunsmith can still do that. A few rifles are still sold, but what they figured out over the years is that everybody ends up putting scopes on, and it was a waste of time and money to put open sights on because nobody was using them anymore. So yeah, if you want them, you're going to have probably have them put on afterwards. But there's another option. Take along a spare scope. I've always advocated for quick release scope rings, and then you have your bases on the rifle. If you break your scope, you turn it off with those quick release rings, and you have your spare scope that you brought along to camp in rings already zeroed to the rifle, and you just clamp it on. I recommend re-zeroing just to make sure it's not off by an inch or so, but bingo, you're back in business. And I've done that for decades now, taking them along to Africa, Alaska, and every which where, and I don't even remember if I've ever had to use it. I remember falling on scopes a few times, but I was able to re-sight them. Just they might have been off 8 inches or something, and re-zeroed, and they were solid and ready to go. So I never actually had to completely change off the scope.
Didn't we have a scope it was ineffective in Africa and we had to switch?
I don't remember switching, but at any rate, it could happen.
You did.
Yeah. Betsy remembers it happening. So I've got so many hunts under my belt, I can't remember. But that is a great way to solve it. Just take along that spare scope. And you'll find that having that scope along keeps you in the game farther than open sights. I mean, I can't shoot stuff past about 100 yards with my eyes anymore on open sights. But if you're really young and trained well, you probably could go to 200. But gee whiz, 300-yard game shooting with open sights is pretty rough. Whereas if you have a scope along, even if it's just a 4X, you're going to have a lot easier time zeroing and sighting your game and being effective. So that's a good solution for that. All right, I think we are done here, guys. I got a few that I kind of zipped over and got lost on this one. Maybe we'll page through here and see if we've missed anybody and come back to you. But hey, I want to thank everybody for writing in and chewing me out. Some of them were patting me on the back. I always like those, yeah. But as I always say, guys, we're all in this together, and whether you like it or don't like it, write in, comment, and get the discussion flowing here. We're always happy to share all the mistakes we make and have you correct them for us, because the idea is for everybody to learn something and do things right. But it seems like most of this stuff comes down to sort of a personal preference issue. But if you have any good information for us, do write in, share it, and hunt honest and shoot straight. We'll see you next time.